Okay, this is Andrew, and I'm back with the second part of the functions video. So basically, in the last video, this is the solutions for the functions project 2. In the last video, we discussed, what functions are, and we took a look at how these functions are defined. So we're going to dig in a little bit more to the code here. So let's see what we understand. Is hopefully we know CSS, so we don't have to look at that. We did look at the recursion function, which a number is passed here and it's multiplied by itself as it counts down one each time and calls itself. And then when it's done, it returns the answer. Okay, so we've been through that. So let's go back to the index function, the index PHP file, and let's take a look at what we have. So here's the HTML doc, right? And then here's the start of the body. So let's take a look through here. And then here's the end of the body. So we see all the code is actually in the body, okay? And we've taken a look at this in the last video. Here's the actual, this is what the page looks like. Okay, so let's go over here and dig in a little bit more to this code. See if I can squinch this up a little. All right, so in fact, we realize now that we're in the body of the HTML document, and um, the HTML, you should understand the PHP has been added here. Okay, so this student has added a function, and we discussed that. It adds three numbers, so it accepts number 1, number 2, number 3. It adds them and returns a value. Okay. Now, if it only receives one or two numbers, then it uses the defaults for these numbers. Okay, so the string function does the same thing. We've looked at this. It accepts three strings, 1, 2, 3. It explodes those strings into index arrays, and then it pulls the second index of the arrays out of each string and concatenates them using this dot into one string and then echoes this string out. Okay, so you should be right with me now. So the recursion function, okay, we're including the recursion function. That means we're including this script into this script. Okay, got it? All right, so function time span. As I told you, this should be super straightforward. This is a built-in function. Okay, so just like you can create functions, well, there's functions already created for you, and time span is one of them. You pass date 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you can look at date difference of date 1 and 2, and then just echo the difference in the days, right? Difference 2, date 2 and 3, echo the difference. Okay, so that should be super straightforward. And then, okay, so now you see that we're at the end of the PHP right here, right? So you saw we're in the body of the HTML and we started PHP code, right? This ends the PHP code. Now we're back in the HTML world right here, and what you're doing is creating this post, right? You're putting this form up here. So basically that's this guy, right? See that? Number 1. So type name number 1. Type number name number 2. Type number name number 3. Then you have a submit button, right? Submit value submit. Okay, now you're going into PHP to do something with those numbers that are entered here. Okay, so um, basically if it's set, then you want to put the number that's posted in 1, 2, and 3 in these variables 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that's easy enough. So if I put 4, 5, and 6, then this gets, and I press submit, then number 1 gets 4, number 2 gets 5, number 3 gets 6. Okay, now if empty, that means if there's no numbers and I press submit, then I should get 6 because that's the default value, right? So what it's doing is it's echo, so it's calling add, but since there's no values, it's calling the function add, which is right here, with no values. So it's going to use its default, and it's going to use 1, 2, 3. It's going to add them together and return 6. So it comes back down here, and it echoes 6 right here. Okay, so that's if it's empty. Else if, so if it wasn't empty and there's only one number, right? Then what's going to happen? It's going to echo um, number 1. So it's going to call add with number 1, number 2, number 3. But if only one number it is only one number, then it should use the defaults. Okay, so let's try that. So if the default, if we enter nothing, is 1, 2, 3 is 6, as we saw. So let's say we enter 5. Okay, and let's press it. So we get 5. So let's say we enter 5 here. We get 5. Let's say we enter 7. Okay, which is what we would expect. Okay, sorry. So let's see exactly what he did here and try to figure it out. So basically he's saying if I don't enter anything, any values, that's this first case. If it's empty, call add. So we go up to add and we use 1, 2, and 3. So it's 6. And that's what we got. There's no numbers. So it looks like what he's trying to do is catch a number of cases, right? So he's saying if only number 2 and 3 are used, so let's do 4 and 7. Oh, sorry, 4 and 7. Then you want to return 11. So what he's done is, okay, if you've only entered two numbers, um, for one for number 2 and one for number 3, then just add the two numbers, but you won't use the default value. So it's not adding this one default value onto the 4 and 7, if that makes any sense. He's just trying to catch. It makes it a little more confusing because what he's trying to do is catch different situations. So this one is basically 1 and 3. So if only number 1 and 3 is entered, which is, let's say, 5 and 6, then again we get 11. See that? So 1 and 3. So this is 2 and 3. This is 1 and 3. This is 1 and 2. So he's allowing for the cases where you have only two of these numbers entered, but it's not adding the default. So the first case is if nothing is entered, then it gives you the default. If only two are entered, then it's not adding the default. Often you don't want to bypass that. You do want to add the default value. Okay, so if all three, so if you didn't understand any of that, don't panic. Let's just look at the case right now where all three numbers are entered. 5, 7, and 9, which is what, 21 probably. All right, so number 1, which is 5, this is 7, and this is 9, and we add them all up. We call add, which is where add. So 5, 7, 9 adds them all up, returns the value, and echoes it out right here. 21 to win. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at strings. So um, here again you have your form, as you should already know from HTML. Okay, so string 1, he's calling string 1 is a name. That's a text type box. String 2 is a text. String 3 right here is a text, and then submit. So what we're going to do is say He's catching the case here where you don't enter the where you didn't enter anything. So let's see what happens. Please enter at least 3 comma separated words in each box. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now let's do that. So it's going to take the first one and put it in string Z1, the second one put it in string Z2, and the third one put it in string Z3. So let's do that. We'll just say A comma B comma C. And, you know, it can be a letter. It doesn't have to be a word. I mean, it could be a full word like orange, apple, but it can just be a letter too. So this is okay. H-I-J. All right. Now, so when I push this button, what it does is it's gonna put um it's gonna put ABC in the first string, DEF in the second string, and HIJ in the third string, okay? And then it's gonna call strings. And if you remember what strings did right here is it just explodes this into an index array. So now this is an array where this is strings 0 equals A, strings B 1 equals B, strings 2 equals C. So you want to add the C, F, and J. So that's what this does, is it just pulls out, this pulls out the C, this pulls out the F, this pulls out the J. This concatenates a comma, this concatenates a comma, and it concatenates C, F, and J together. So let's push the button. Well, sorry. A, B, and J. Oh, sorry, H. Okay, so C, F, and J. The third word in each string is C, F, and J. Even though it's a letter, it could have been a word. I just did a letter for a simple test, okay? No, that's pretty much everything. I think we did look at, we looked at the recursion, okay? So let's see just exactly how it's working in here. Here's the factorial. So here's your here's on your form. He's putting number, factorial, minimum 1 to 20, max, submit value. So if, okay, he's handling the empty case, just please enter a valid value. Else solution equals solution. Um, so solution concatenate with explanation, which is your factorial, and dot recursion. Okay, so then it goes to the recursion function. We've been through this. It counts down and it returns the value right here, and then it echoes all that out. So we tried that. We put a number in, such as 5. We get 120. Okay, so hopefully, again, well, it's there's no reason to go through the date create. You know, it's all the same thing. So um, hopefully that makes sense, and this should be pretty clear to you. At least take this code, play around with it some, change a few things. You know, just for example, even just to get started, you know, you can change anything you want here and see what happens. So, for example, let's say you want to change. Let's say I put in here's my answer: 5 factorial equals 120. Well, what happens if I do this? Come down here and say, okay, solution. Let's just get rid of this. Now what happens? 6 factorial equals 720. Gotta save it. Let's try 5. Okay, see, it got rid of it was just printing out the text. So you can see right away as you go in here and start changing stuff, um, how that's gonna affect the code. So I strongly suggest that's a good way of learning how to code is to get into the code, play around with it. You still have save the original copy, and then you can just modify this one as much as you want. Play around with it. If it gets too messed up, then you can go back to this one and start over. All right, thanks a lot. I hope that helps you a lot, and I hope you're coming along well. Thank you. See you in the next video.